found out that they sing this in Mangalarti.
Yeah.
Because they sing Samsara at the
Prabhupada
Prabhupada
Samadhi.
Samadhi. So it's a very beautiful bhajan. Should we do translation first or later?
We can do it later.
Vibhavari Sesha Aloka Pravesha Nitra Chari Utto Jiva
Vibhavari Shesha Loka Pravisha Nidra Chadi Utha Jiva
Vibhavari Sesha Aloka
Vibhavari Shesha Loka Pravisha Nidra Chadi Utha Jiva Hari Hari Mukunda Murari Rama Krishna Narsimha Vamana Srimadosudana Brajendra Nandana Shama Putana Gatana Koita Basatana Jaya Dasa Rati Rama Yashoda Dulala Govinda Gopala Vrindavana Purandara Gopi Priya Jana Radhika Ramana Bhuvana Sundara Mara Ravanantakara Makhanataskara Gopi Jana Vastrahari Jirarakala Gopavindapala Chittahari Vamsidhari Yogendra Bandana Sri Nandanandana Brajajana Bayari Navinani Raga Rupa Manohara Mohana Vamsi Bihari Saya Jagakama Gopangana Gana Chita Vinodana Samasta Gunagana Dhamma Yamunadi Mana Keli Parayana Manasa Chandra Jagoya Nama Shudharasa Go Krishna Jasa Rako Vachana Manamora Vibhavati Kesha Aloka Brahmavisha Nedrachati Uttadiva Bolo Hari Hari Mukunda Murari Rama Krishna Hare Viva Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Vaishnav Thakur Vaishnav Thakur Vaishnav Thakur Jaya Vaishnav Thakur Jaya Prabhupada 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 Srila Prabhupada Jai
Everybody have the translation. I'm happy to start. Just close. Oh, I can start then. Yeah. The night has come to an end, and the light of dawn is entering. O Jiva, soul, arise and give up your sleep. Chant the holy names of Lord Hari, who is the giver of liberation, the enemy of the Mura demon, the supreme enjoyer, the all-attractive one, and the cause of their incarnation, Hare Krishna. You want to go?
the darling of Mother Yashoda, the giver of pleasure to the cows, land and spiritual senses, and the protector of the cows. He is the Lord of the Vrindavan forest, the gopis' beloved, the lover of Radhika, and the most beautiful personality in all the worlds.
As Ramachandra, he brought about the end of the demonic king Ravana. As Krishna, he stole the older gopis' butter. He stole the younger gopis' clothes while they were bathing in the Yamuna. He is a cowherd boy of Raja and the protector of the cowherd boys. He steals the hearts of all and always holds a flute.
Lord Krishna is worshipped by the best of the yogis and is the son of Nanda. He removes all the fears of the inhabitants of Raja. He is the color of a fresh rain cloud and his form is enchanting. When he wanders about playing his flute, he looks very charming.
He is the son of Yashoda and the killer of King Kamsa, and he sports in the rasa dance among the groves of Raja. Krishna engages in this rasa dance underneath the Kadamba trees and he resides in the forest of Vrindavan. Seventh.
He increases the ecstasy of his devotee. He is the reservoir of all love and is the transcendental Cupid who uses his flowered arrows to increase the loving desire of the gopis. He is the pleasure of gopis' hearts and the abode of all wonderful qualities.
8.
Yeah.
Lord Krishna is the life of the river Yamuna. He is always absorbed in amorous pastimes, and he's the moon of the gopis' mind, which are like the chakora birds that subsist only upon moonlight. O mind, obey these words of mine and sing the glories of Sri Krishna in the form of these holy names, which are full of nectarian mellows.
Any reflections? Beautiful bhajan.
You can share some reflections.
Yeah, I was hearing commentaries on this bhajan because I fell in love when I heard him in for the first time. One of the things that I heard is that so in this verse, if you notice the pattern, so from verse 2 to 8, it's all glories of Krishna, characteristics of Krishna, the qualities of Krishna, the pastimes of Krishna, that he kills the demons and he gives pleasure to all the devotees. But the first verse itself says, Bhaktivinoda Thakur gives the instruction that Nidra Chari Utho Jiva, wake up, give up your sleep and arise. So I was hearing that how first when we can go directly to Krishna, but it is very difficult to understand the different qualities and different pastimes. So everyone can hear, but the understanding will be different. But here, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is first giving the instruction that no, but before that, before you go to Krishna, wake up, do your sadhana. Once your heart is absorbed with your sadhana, then all these different pastimes will enter in the heart like nothing else. And if someone goes directly that no, it's okay, no, I can just go to Krishna. I like take darshans and all that. So they also have benefits. But the best benefit is when someone gives up the sleep. And it is a big austerity, a big sacrifice to give up the sleep. And Prabhupada has given. So today we had our Mahamangalarti, the first Mahamangalarti in a long time and for the year. So it was so nice to see all the devotees coming in the morning and look at Manharpur, such an inspiration. So yeah, it is we can feel right after the morning program, things are so nice and it's easy to understand Krishna's glory after that.
I like the points you were making about waking up. It's very, very similar to another song by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Jeev jago, Gaura Chandra bole. Kotha nidra gao maya, pisa chiro khole. That you just wake up, It's pisa, Maya, from Maya's lap. You're sleeping in Maya's lap, but then we have to awaken. Not just sleeping is a very important thing to wake up from, but also waking up from all. It's described in some of the commentaries that when the acharyas say awake or arise, it's awaken from illusion. It's sleep is one. It's on the external level, but then our attachments, our anarthas, are also a different type of an illusion. So to get rid of those illusions are also quite important, and that's why the morning program is there, because you start. I was hearing Badrinath Mar just saying in a recent class. He was saying only Vaishnavas can have a good morning. We go and say, "Sir, you have a good morning," and then he was giving an example how some people, they just go to work, don't take a shower, they have a coffee without even brushing their teeth, and and then we say, "Good morning, how are you, sir?" "Oh, I'm fine. I'm having a very fine day, sir." But actually, that's not a life worth living. Coming to the temple, taking a bath early morning, and dancing in front of Krishna, that's actually nice, good morning. And chanting Hare Krishna with the devotees in front of Tulsi, it gives you a lot of Shakti. It gives you a lot of Shakti for the day. And then the rest of the day, no matter what you do, nobody can take that away from you, that you started your morning like that. And also, since you started so early, you'll probably go to bed early, and then you have another good day of tomorrow. So you see how the cycle starts. So you just need to, everybody just needs to just at some point say, I'm just going to dedicate my time for this. It's really important for me to wake up in the morning chanting. We do Mahamangalarati once a month, but we can do it every day at our home and wherever we are. And we just need to stop. We get in a cycle, It's like falling asleep in japa. I experienced that once. But then once you're falling asleep in japa, you don't know you're falling asleep in japa. So you're just kind of like going like this and this. And then at some point you just got to say, stop. Let me get up. Let me get up and chant. So at some point we just need to say, stop. Let me go to sleep early one day. Let me wake up early one day. And then the cycle will build. Take it week to week, day to day. And that helps. So, and then gradually you'll see all the bad habits, anarthas, everything stemming from that will gradually decrease by attending this morning program, by doing our morning ablutions, our sacrifices during this time. It's very nice. Even karmis, if materialists, if you go to the biggest materialists, like the billionaires, they utilize the morning. They utilize them. They always say, wake up at 4, wake up at 5, go to the gym, go to this, and then you'll become a millionaire. So even they utilize the morning. What to speak of devotees? We actually know the real wealth of the morning.
Right. The whole saying, early to bed, early to rise makes a person healthy, wealthy, wise. It's so true, because you're right, even materialists. We don't talk about spirituality here, we talk about health, wealth, wisdom.
Yeah.
All those material qualities also come because the morning part has so much importance, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the best time. So the more we dedicate to that, the temple is always here. It's always open like this. So the more we do that, is better.
Thank you for inviting all of us.
Inviting this.
Once a month, and then we can, like you said, we can build up on there. Like once a weekend, I don't know, or every day.
It's actually the first one this decade, if you think about it. In the 2020s, because we didn't 2020, 2021, we didn't have one. And then so now we're starting 2022. So hopefully we'll keep it strong.
This decade will be Mangalarati special.
This is the Mangalarati decade. Anything else? Prabhu, you wanna?
Yeah, we should not think that we are invited here. Temple is open.
Temple's open for everyone.
So somebody has to take the initiative and ask everybody to come, like Prabhu did. Of course, because to voluntarily do something, it's sometimes difficult for most of us.
Yeah.
That is true, and that's what with so many devotees in the morning, it was like feeling like.
It felt so good.
Yeah.
It felt so good.
Like every Saturday, at least for people who are outside working and all that. So Saturday only we can give for this practice. And who knows, like I was saying, at home then we can start more seriously.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's 8:03. We'd like to invite Ekachakra Prana Prabhu for the Srimad Bhagavatam class. Prabhu, can Prabhu sit there? Is that okay? Ekachakra Prana Prabhu is coming from far lands of ISKCON, Athens, Ohio.
Thank you very much, everyone. So happy to be here with you.
Oh yeah.
Hare Krishna, everyone. Hare Krishna.
Nice.
Intermediate. We got a pretty loud voice.
It's for the.
Okay, great. Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you for such an ecstatic morning program. It's really inspiring to see everyone here together in such an enthusiastic mood. Very, very nice. I'm always amazed at the energy here in Columbus. Devotees are so sincere and serious. So thank you very much for having me. For the next hour, we'll be discussing Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the spotless Prana, the cream of all the Vedic literatures. This is what Srila Prabhupada brought to America in the 1960s and started this whole revolution of consciousness all across the world. So I'd recommend getting into a mood of receptivity, a mood of humility as we read the words of the great sages rendered through Srila Prabhupada.
Mic is not working.
Hare Krishna.
Is that working? Mic.
Yeah, it's on. Krishna. I think the connection is going in and out. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. It's like turning on and turning off. I think it's your connection. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. There we go. Hare Krishna.
Is it okay?
Yeah, it's good. I offer my respectful obeisances to His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. I offer all of you my humble obeisances. Thank you very much. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna tera vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavala Girivaradari. Gopi Janavala Girivaradari. Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunlitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yakripa Tamam Shri Gurum Dinataranam Vandeham Shri Guru Shiyuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pada Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Gaura Premanandi Haribo. Reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam today, Canto 1, Chapter 10, Departure of Lord Krishna for Dwarka. And today I'll read a few verses and then we will go deep into the 25th verse. How's everybody doing today?
Great.
Any questions before we get started? Questions are very powerful. You can shape the direction of your life, or at least of this class. It's a good question. So in this chapter, Yudhisthira was just reinstated as the emperor of the world by Krishna. And because he was enlightened by hearing Bhishma Dev on the battlefield and hearing from Lord Krishna, he was doing a really good job. He was doing a perfect job, actually. The perfect king of the world. And the demigods were pleased. There was plenty of rain. There was plenty of crops. All the mountains and everything were producing minerals and herbs and everything in abundance. There were no enemies in the land. It was a very nice time to be on the planet. And at this point, Krishna went to Hastinapur just to appease his relatives who wanted him to hang around. Anyone been there before? Go home and just spend some time with your relatives to please them? Even Krishna did that. And then he wanted to go. He wanted to leave, so he asked for permission from Yudhisthira, who granted permission. But the entire family and the whole city were so sad to see him go. And they were basically fainting, just thinking of him leaving. And we see this throughout our Vaishnava literatures. Whenever Krishna is about to leave, everyone's really sad. Vaishnavas don't even want to talk about when Krishna leaves. And the perfection of that is when Krishna is leaving Vrindavan and the gopis are just absolutely distraught. So Krishna's about to leave. All the musicians started playing on the drums to show him honor. There was a great big festival in the city, and all the ladies were up on the roofs, showering flowers, showing great respect and love. And this is where we come into text 20 through 25, which is what I'll read. This is the women on the roofs of the buildings, and they're talking about Krishna. And it's said that their praise of Krishna was more beautiful than the words and the hymns of the Vedas. So even just these these women just kind of talking among themselves, because they were imbued with love of Krishna, their words were more beautiful and more valuable than even the words of the Vedas, according to the Srimad Bhagavatam. More attractive than the hymns of the Vedas is what it says here. Okay, so starting at text 20, I'll read the 5 verses and we'll go into text 25 for a closer study. Absorbed in the thought of the transcendental qualities of the Lord, who is sung in select poetry, the ladies on the roofs of all the houses of Hastinapur began to talk of him. This talk was more attractive than the hymns of the Vedas. They said, "Here he is, the original personality of Godhead, as we definitely remember him. He alone existed before the manifested creation of the modes of nature, and in him only, because he is the Supreme Lord, all living beings merge, as if sleeping at night, their energy suspended." The personality of Godhead, again desiring to give names and forms to his parts and parcels, the living entities, place them under the guidance of the material nature. By his own potency, material nature is empowered to recreate. Here is the same Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose transcendental form is experienced by the great devotees who are completely cleansed in different periods and ages. So without looking, can someone say in your own words what this verse is saying? Or give something that you heard from it?
So when people in power, they live like animals, like in lowest consciousness, then during that time, Lord appears and shows special mercies to his devotees and special mercy, and then perform his leela.
That was awesome. Thank you so much. It's nice to hear it in your words. And here's the purport. As mentioned above, the cosmic creation is the property of the Supreme Lord. This is the basic philosophy of Ishopanishad. Everything is the property of the Supreme Being. Ishavasyam mudam sarvam yatkincha jagatam jagat tena katena bhunjita magritikasya sridanam. No one should encroach upon the property of the Supreme Lord. One should accept only what is kindly awarded by him. Therefore, the earth or any other planet or universe is the absolute property of the Lord. The living beings are certainly his parts and parcels, or sons, and thus every one of them has a right to live at the mercy of the Lord, to execute his prescribed work. No one, therefore, can encroach upon the right of another individual man or animal without being so sanctioned by the Lord. The king or the administrator is the representative of the Lord to look after the management of the Lord's will. He must therefore be a recognized person like Maharaj Yudhisthira or Parikshit. Such kings have full responsibility and knowledge from authorities about the administration of the world. But at times, due to the influence of the ignorance mode of material nature, tamoguna, the lowest of the material modes, kings and administrators come into power without knowledge and responsibility, and such foolish administrators live like animals for the sake of their own personal interest. The result is that the whole atmosphere becomes surcharged with anarchy and vicious elements. Nepotism, bribery, cheating, aggression, and therefore famine, epidemic, war, and similar other disturbing features become prominent in human society. And the devotees of the Lord, or the faithful, are persecuted by all means. All these symptoms indicate the time of an incarnation of the Lord to reestablish the principles of religion and to vanquish the maladministrators. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. The Lord then appears in his transcendental form without any tinge of material qualities. He descends just to keep the state of his creation in a normal condition. The normal condition is that the Lord has provided each and every planet with all the needs of the native living beings. They can happily live and execute their predestined occupations to attain salvation at the end, following the rules and regulations mentioned in the revealed scriptures. The material world is created to satisfy the whims of the Nitya Baddha, or everlasting conditioned souls, just as naughty boys are provided with playing cradles. Otherwise, there is no need of the material world. But when they become intoxicated with the power of material science to exploit the resources unlawfully without the sanction of the Lord, and that also only for sense gratification, there is necessity of the Lord's incarnation to chastise the rebellious and to protect the faithful. When he descends, he exhibits superhuman acts just to prove his supreme right, and materialists like Ravana, Hiranyakashipu, and Kamsa are sufficiently punished. He acts in a manner which no one can imitate. For example, the Lord, when he appeared as Rama, bridged the Indian Ocean. When he appeared as Krishna, from his very childhood he showed superhuman activities by killing Putana, Aghasura, Shakatasura, Kaliya, etc. And then his maternal uncle Kamsa. When he was at Dwarka, he married 16,108 queens, and all of them were blessed with a sufficient number of children. The sum total of his personal family members amounted to about 100,000, popularly known as the Yadu Vamsha. And again, during his lifetime, he managed to vanquish them all. He is famous as the Govardhan Hari because he lifted, at the age of only 7, the hill known as Govardhan. The Lord killed many undesirable kings in his time, and as a Kshatriya, he fought chivalrously. He is famous as Asamurdva, unparalleled. No one is equal to or greater than him. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. This is a very nice lesson here that Krishna can do anything. If we are ever facing difficulties in our lives, maybe we're being repressed or we're being chastised unfairly, we see this. Krishna will come to punish the demons and will reinstate the devotees. So we can take heart through the challenges. Even his dearest devotees, the Pandavas, had to go through periods of extreme challenge, years of exile, being cheated, having their kingdom stolen from them. But in the end, Krishna reinstated the principles of religion and punished the demons. And we see now Yudhisthira is back on the throne. We see eventually Hiranyakashipu is killed and Prahlad is saved. Krishna is the owner of all the planets. We mentioned this verse last night. Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, 529, Bhagavad Gita. And if we really believe that he owns all the universes and has ultimate power, and he's our friend, of course he will take care of us. When things seem impossible, there's nothing impossible for Krishna. And Prabhupada said the same thing when he was asking for his books to be published. They were being published too slow. He said all 17 books need to be published in 2 months. And they said, Prabhupada, that's impossible. Prabhupada put his cane down and said, impossible is a word only in a fool's dictionary. Because he understood that Krishna is the owner of all planets and is the best friend of all beings, and that he can do anything. I'll tell a little bit about my story and where I've kind of learned this lesson in small ways. Let's see where to start. So I was a rock and roll musician, and I had no idea about Krishna consciousness about 6 years ago. I was studying yoga and meditation. I was a bit of a yoga teacher. But I had all sorts of material desires and all sorts of bad habits. And I wanted to be the enjoyer. And at some point, Krishna blessed me by introducing me to one of his devotees in Nashville, who then started purifying my intelligence and teaching me about Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and about Krishna and about Prabhupada. And I was able to dovetail my musician service into Krishna's service. I met Indradumna Swami, and they invited me to travel with them as a musician. So I traveled with them to Europe for a while, and then India. Living with devotees really changed my whole point of view about life. I became much more sincere and serious about spiritual life. I was able to stop my bad habits. It was very challenging. I didn't think I'd be able to do it, honestly. But this same principle, once I finally decided, yes, I'm going to be serious, I'm going to walk the talk. All these other devotees are doing it. I can do it too. And I was able to overcome the anarthas that were really a defining feature of my early life and seemed to be too strong. And then when I was aspiring for initiation, it was during the pandemic, and it was said that all the initiations would be on Zoom. But I really wanted to do it in person. So I had this same feeling that Krishna can make anything happen. It's kind of been put into a slogan recently by the book distribution movement, assume it can be done. Whatever goals you have, if you assume it can be done, you're much more likely to accomplish it. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. But as far as the initiation, I went for it. I didn't ask anybody. I flew to California without, asking, can I please come in person? And I just flew there and just kind of hoped and prayed. And then miraculously, 2 days before the initiation ceremony, the citywide ban on any public gatherings was lifted. And then the next day I got a text message saying, you can come to the temple, we'll do it in person. Yeah. So another example is before that, when I was traveling with Indrajumna Swami, we were in Rishikesh, India, for a big festival. And right when the pandemic started, we were there in India, in Rishikesh, and all the devotees changed their flights to fly back to their homes because they could see that there was this lockdown coming. But I had this inner feeling like, I think it'd be fine to stay here for the lockdown. So I didn't change my flight, and I waited and to see what would happen. And I had trust that it would work out for the best. And lo and behold, there was a strict lockdown, but we got stuck in the ashram, and they kept taking care of us. Only a few of us were still there. And it turned out to be one of the most transformative experiences of my life, living for 4 months with the monks there, going deep into the books, going deep into service. Right outside my window, Ganga passing by, Himalayan mountains. It was a life-changing experience because I just trusted that Krishna would take good care. And then 4 months later, there was a chance to fly home on a repatriation flight, and it all just worked out perfectly. So I guess the main lesson of my talk today would be whatever goals you have, whatever you want to accomplish in your service, even if it seems impossible, don't worry about how it's going to happen. Just know that you're going to do it. Believe in what you're going to do, and the how will eventually reveal itself in amazing ways. Because Krishna is the master of the three worlds, he's the best friend of all living entities, and he can do anything he wants. He lifted Govardhan Hill at 7 years old. He killed all the greatest demons. He married 16,000 queens. Krishna can do anything. He's the one who's in control. And he knows your heart. He knows what you want to do. And if you really believe in it and take a step towards him, in the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna has a similar problem. He doesn't think he can do it. But Krishna says, just think of me and do it. Just think of me and fight. And I'll carry you over all of your obstacles by my grace. So we can learn these lessons. These lessons are being presented to us so that we do think about them and apply them in our own lives. And really believe in the power of Krishna to help us. Especially with what we're doing is in his service. He's very kind and merciful to his servants. There's a story I heard recently about Garuda Prabhu. When he was getting his PhD from Harvard in Sanskrit, he had a big exam and he had to study for it. He didn't prepare enough. And the night before the exam, his newborn child started teething. Or whenever children start teething, his child started teething. And he had to spend all night up with the baby, taking care of him, and didn't have any chance to sleep, didn't have any chance to study. And the morning came and he was feeling, I heard this story secondhand, so I hope it's accurate. He was starting to feel really tired and couldn't think of anything. And he thought, man, I'm finished. This is finished. So he went to the exam hall in this just kind of state of sleeplessness and unpreparedness. And he sat down, he was the first one there, and the test administrator came in and walks up to him and says, "Oh, you're here early. Oh yeah, what's the test on?" "Oh, Sanskrit." And then she walked back to her desk and sat down and said, "The only Sanskrit I know is Hare Krishna." And the way I heard the story, as soon as he heard Hare Krishna, he remembered Krishna, and he felt this energy flow through his body, and he suddenly believed, like, I can do this. The test came out, he did the test, he submitted it, and it ended up he got distinctions, high marks, passed the test. So just an example of remembering Krishna and that he can do anything. Another example from my own experience. So now that I was initiated and I wanted to start doing service for my Guru Maharaj. And I asked him repeatedly, what can I do to serve you? Because I had read over and over, service to the great souls is the number one way to advance spiritually and to purify the heart and to gain affinity for hearing the messages of Bhagavatam. So I kept begging for service. And then he allowed me to do some writing and editing, some basic things that I would, as quickly and with as much focus, as much power I could put into it, I would do my service. And then eventually he started giving me more and more responsibility until he asked me to compile a book from his teachings. And I was thinking, like, oh my goodness, what a huge responsibility. How can I edit anything that he said? How can I do such a big, important project? But him and the other people on the team would continue to just encourage me. Just do it. Just do your best. So I was able to do this service. I would approach it very prayerfully and hope not to make any offenses. But I was able to build a manuscript out of these different lectures. And he loved it, and everybody loves it. And now it'll become a book at some point. So it's the same principle. It seems like an impossible task to, whatever is your goal in life, maybe it's not writing a book, maybe it's not fighting a battle, but we all have something that we want to accomplish. And if we assume it can be done. As a congregation here, I'm so excited to see your new temple, which I've heard so much about, and I can see that you've used this principle of assuming it can be done. Even through the pandemic, which would be such a challenging time to accomplish anything, you've been able to move this project forward. So even if it still seems challenging, I would encourage, just have this attitude that it can be done. Anything can be done if we just keep Krishna in the center. We saw this recently with the Live to Give campaign in December. They had a huge goal, 2.2 million Bhagavad Gitas distributed across the world. Try to picture 2.2 million Bhagavad Gitas. I wonder how many tractor-trailer trucks that would fill up, or how many Olympic swimming pools that would fill up. But because everyone believed it could be done, they not only met that goal was smashed. They distributed 2.8 million Bhagavad Gitas all over the world.
I think it was 3.2.
It's gone up to 3.2 now? Oh my goodness. Amazing. The number just keeps going up. Even just in India alone, they broke the goal of 2.2 million. Which just 10 years ago would have sounded like an impossible goal. There's been a huge surge in book distribution, in connectedness between communities, of inspiration. And now in hindsight, yeah, we did it. But if you think back a few years ago, it seemed impossible. But there was a few people who believed it could be done, who assumed anything could be done. And they made it happen. And then we made it happen. And this was Srila Prabhupada's mood. If we look at the Lilamrita and we read Srila Prabhupada's life story, in his 50s and 60s, he didn't have any support, he didn't have any material things, he didn't have any money, he didn't have any chance. It seemed impossible. His Guru Maharaj asked him to go to the West and preach. And he put that in his heart. And he held it there, day in and day out. But it didn't seem realistic. He was writing letters asking for support. No one would respond. He would ask his godbrothers for support. They would not respond well. He eventually had to beg for a passage on a steamship to America, just with nothing, with just a few boxes of books. An old man, 70 years old. People thought he was crazy. People thought he was going to die. And he almost did. He had heart attacks on the way. But he had enthroned this message of his Guru Maharaj in his heart. And he made it his life and soul. And he assumed that it could be done. And we see Krishna, by his grace, took him over all of the material challenges and allowed him to succeed, to spread his glories. Straight out of Bhagavad Gita, we see this in Srila Prabhupada's life. He just held fast to the transcendental message. And if he had quit, he almost did quit. When he was in New York, he said he went to the steamship and asked, when's the next trip back to India? He was this close, it seemed, to giving up. And who would have blamed him? No one would have blamed him. But he went out, as he said, he went hunting for the rhinoceros. They say, when you go hunting, go shoot for the rhinoceros, because if you don't get it, everyone will say, oh, it's a rhinoceros, you can't beat the rhinoceros. But if you do get the rhinoceros, very wonderful. So he shot for the rhinoceros and he got the rhinoceros. He was able to set up this society that now we are a part of. If it wasn't for Srila Prabhupada, none of us would be here. I know I wouldn't know anything about Krishna. So similarly, whatever challenge in your life seems insurmountable right now, think down the road. Think what it'll be like when you actually achieve it. And believe that you can get there. Prabhupada said, when he was still just in the beginning stages, someone asked him on a park bench what he was doing here. And it was something to the effect of, yes, I have many temples, I have many disciples, I have many books. He was saying these things before they existed. Just time is separating us. So there's that principle of assuming it can be done and visualizing that you can achieve your goals. And I've been really impressed. I came to your book distribution event last month or last week, and I was really impressed with what you guys have done with book distribution. And Prabhupada had this formula that he used to grow ISKCON. It was a 50-50 formula, that 50% of your activities and your resources should go towards temple construction, and 50% should go towards book distribution. And it was a very successful formula throughout the formative years of ISKCON. And I see you guys doing that very nicely. You have this incredible temple project going, and at the same time you're building your book distribution. So I would commend you on your efforts, and see if we can get the book distribution up to 50% of this overall work that you're doing. In Athens, where I'm just setting up some programs right now, which has been really nice. There's college students coming every week, new students, very open, taking beads, taking books, loving the program. I really would like to thank you, Hare Prabhu, and Prema Vilas, and everyone who helped set that up. Rasalila and Ashok. And that's the 50-50 program we're doing there. So 2 days, 2 evening programs, and then 2 days of book distribution on campus. I found everyone that's coming to the programs, we meet on book distribution. So they work together really nicely. So if you're having a certain amount of programs, really good idea to have the same amount of time spent out meeting people and outreach. They really support each other. This is an authorized formula that came down from Srila Prabhupada. And we see it from all the acharyas had this mood. Even the Panchatattva would go door to door trying to distribute books and have it slammed in their face. So if they can handle it, we can follow in their footsteps. And doing book distribution gives spiritual oxygen to the community. I don't know if you guys have ever had a monthly Sankirtan festival and everyone comes back. Can you feel the energy? It's really hard to get out the door. It's really scary. But when you're out there and you meet people and then you come back, everyone's like floating on thin air. And then you have such enthusiasm for the process. So if we can organize in such a way that it's easy and fun for everyone in the community to participate, even in a small way, and then they can taste a little bit of that nectar, it'll do great things to continue to build the book distribution here and the community. Bringing new people in, even one new person will revolutionize the feeling in a program. One new person. I experienced this in Athens. We were just getting started with a yoga class and a brand new person walked in the door. And you could just feel everyone just light up. And I found myself basically just talking to her the whole time. But everybody was really enjoying it. So even if you bring in one person, Prabhupada said this kind of thing a lot. If all my efforts just resulted in one pure devotee, I would think my whole life a success. So we've got about 6 minutes left. If anyone has any reflections or comments or questions, I'd be happy to hear.
Can you share, Prabhu, some of your experiences distributing books, favorable and unfavorable, so that we can learn from this?
Yeah, thank you.
Could you maybe repeat the question for me?
The question was, can you share some of your experiences on book distribution, favorable and unfavorable? I really got into book distribution once I learned a script, a basic outline of how to approach book distribution from Vaisheshika Prabhu. He has a really good basic outline of how to talk to people, because without that, it can be really challenging and scary to approach someone. But once you know basically what to say, when to say it, and have a picture of the whole arc, it's actually very exciting to talk to someone, and you're not as afraid. And it's funny, I use these same principles now whenever I talk to anyone about anything. It's like, it's been really helpful just to how to communicate with people. So I did my most book distribution when I was in New York City at the Bhakti Center. We would go out 3 days a week to Washington Square Park, which is just packed with people. And New Yorkers are tough. Yeah, they're tough because they get stopped all the time. So I had a lot of chance to kind of, maybe you've seen a stone in a river, it's smooth because it's being banged against lots of other stones and the water is running over it. Similarly, we can become smoothed and become more refined through these trial and error and through lots of experience. So being out there talking to many, many people, I had some good experiences, I had some bad experiences, but I would learn from them. And I've learned if someone is very unfavorable, just not even to engage with them. Don't get into a big argument. Just bless them and move on. that's always worked for me. Because I do that, I've never actually had a very serious altercation. Sometimes people even come up and just start like saying negative things to me, but I won't even engage with them, won't even look at them sometimes if it's really bad. And then eventually they'll lose steam and they'll go away. You don't want to feed the fire. But that's 1 out of 100, 1 out of maybe even 500. The vast majority of people are innocent and interested and open. And I've had so many good experiences. And book distribution is real preaching, because they're going to take that book home. They might sit on their shelf for months or years, but at some point they're going to open it and associate with Srila Prabhupada, or maybe their friend will, or maybe they'll give it to someone else. You have no idea where that time bomb is going to go and when it's going to blow open with Krishna consciousness. And the fact that it's sustainable, because you're actually receiving Lakshmi a lot of times, it makes it a very sustainable service in Krishna consciousness. It allows you to support yourself and support the temple. So book distribution is a very important part of spreading Krishna consciousness. Did you have any specific thing you wanted to hear?
I was just thinking, if you could share some 1 or 2 experiences wherein, when you approach people, something which can encourage and inspire us to go for it. Examples, maybe one.
Yeah. Actually walking up to people, I find to be more challenging than setting up a table. That's what I've been doing almost exclusively now, is setting up a nice table with the books and a sign. Books on yoga and meditation, help you get free from stress. That's my key line that I got from Ekachakra Prabhu. So when you have the table, people are more likely to approach you, and you seem more legitimate.
Yeah.
There are distributors who go and just approach people, and they're very inspiring, but I was never as comfortable doing that. But when you have a table and you set up in a place where there's lots of foot traffic, that's very important. And then when someone's walking by, you can say, "Hi, where are you from?" And then that stops them in their tracks. They'll turn, they'll come over and talk to you, and then you can start the conversation from there. So that works really well. And yeah, is that helpful?
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. Really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. Did anyone else have any reflections from what I talked about today, or from the verse, or anything you'd like to share?
Yeah, I have a question, Prabhu. So you talked about goal, how to achieve, like starting with an assumption that it's done. But sometimes, we do have goals that are on a material level, and sometimes when they don't get, when the reality is different than our assumption, our faith starts, I have seen, that's my personal experience, the faith also starts converting into fear. How would you handle that kind of situation when reality turns out to be different than our assumption?
Really good point. I think that's happened to all of us. Well, as far as the fear goes, Krishna recommends ma shutaha, do not fear. So if you feel yourself in that fearful mood, it can be helpful to realize that that doesn't help, and that's one place to start, is to kind of notice your fear and kind of face it. And if you're really fearful, it's hard to accomplish anything. It's much easier if you're able to create a positive mental attitude, whether through affirmations or through maybe thinking about gratitude. Any kind of techniques you can use to change your mindset from fear and kind of go up the ladder into more positive states of mind. Because when we're happy and when we're comfortable, we're more able to be creative. We're more able to, our mind works better. And if we're fearful, we're bringing in more fearful thoughts and we're acting from a fearful place. This comes back to book distribution. When I'm out there and I'm feeling fearful, less people are likely to stop. They can sense it in me. The whole world, Krishna can sense it. But if you go out in a very positive kind of light, gentle, happy mood, that'll attract a lot of goodness. So if we're fearful, we're less likely to attract the things we need to accomplish our goals. And if we don't achieve our goals, don't be too beat up about it. You can always readjust and try again. It's like in the Bhagavad Gita, there's the verse Apichet Duchirasa. Yeah. Even if you make a mistake, don't let it destroy you. Just firmly establish your intention to serve again. And Krishna says, yeah, that's good. That's all you need right there. So if you're having a trouble achieving your goals, just try again. Try to get some support around you. Reassess. Maybe come up with something realistic. There's a methodology called SMART goals, which is very practical, specific, measurable, achievable, time-bound. I missed one. What was it?
Yeah, sorry.
A?
The R.
Or R? Well, yeah, you can look it up, SMART goals. And that can be a helpful methodology for really coming to a concrete goal that you can feel good about. And the more confident you are in your plan, and you see, okay, I can actually do this, the more likely you will take the actions. If we feel completely overwhelmed by it and fearful of it, it's likely we'll just back away and not do anything, and it'll just pass us by. And then we can get in a cycle of New Year's resolutions where people come up with New Year's resolutions, and then by January 15th, every year they lose it, and then that becomes a pattern. So we want to avoid that. Like, it's January 29th now. I'm sure most gyms have already had their spike in attendance, and they're back to where they were in November. Is that helpful?
Yeah, thanks for sharing.
Thank you. Did you have a question, Alec?
Yeah, I was actually just gonna ask something very similar what Mataji asked about, sometimes you said that, assume it can be done, or assume it is done. And you shared a couple of your examples, how you flew to, to get initiated, and the other example also that. But have you ever had experience where you assume it can be done and it didn't get done? And now, imagine if that happens every day, like, you are serving and every day it's not getting done, like, or you are not getting the result what you were expecting, and if it happens again and again over time, Krishna is not so, of course he's the most merciful, but maybe it's something with me that I'm not seeing.
Really good point. Yes.
How to stay encouraged and still assume it can be done.
Yeah, I have had that experience many times, but looking back, it's mostly the desires I had that were not really pure and not in line with Krishna's will. And in that case, yeah, he can shut you down. You can even get those things if you want it. Look at the godless society. They're getting everything they want. Krishna is very kind. Give them lots of money or sense gratification. But to his devotees, he's even more kind by taking away those things so that you become just purely devoted to him. So make sure that your desires are in line with Krishna's desires. That's the first step. And yeah, it's always going to be fluid and readjusting. And it might take longer than you think. A lot of people overestimate what they can do in 1 year, but underestimate what they can do in 10 years. Generally, change is, exponential. And the beginning stages is the most difficult. So don't be too hard on yourself if you don't see immediate results, but keep at it. And have a long-term vision. Because in the long term, a lot more can happen than in the short term. Yeah, as long as we're moving in the right direction, moving towards Krishna, it doesn't really matter how long it takes. Like if you're engaged in book distribution and you don't reach your goal, your self-imposed goal, it's not the end of the world because you've just been doing book distribution anyway. Probably more than you would have done without the big goal, so it did help. The goal in itself is not that important. The number is kind of arbitrary, but it's what we become in the process of reaching for it. It's what we become that really matters. So when you're thinking, I'm not sure what you're referring to as far as your own goals that were not reached, but think back, and in your reaching for that goal, did you find some positive change in your life? Even if you didn't reach that goal. Here's a personal example. I was really into like The Secret and into manifestation before I found Krishna consciousness.
Law of attraction.
Law of attraction. So I was like seeing myself as a millionaire and like affirming that by this date I will have all this money and all this and that. And then I kind of lost that desire when I became more into as a devotee. But then one day, pretty much the same time I said I'll be a millionaire by this day, I realized I'm living like a millionaire as a devotee. Everything's taken care of. I have the best food. I have the best place to live. I have the best associates. I'm able to travel all around the world. This is the millionaire lifestyle. So in a strange way, Krishna did fulfill that, but just not in the way that I was expecting. It's kind of a odd example, but I hope that's helpful.
It's very relevant. Thank you.
Thank you. Hari?
I really liked your class and your personal examples. I was kind of reflecting on what you were saying about taking those risks. Now, I wouldn't say risks, taking those opportunities and, leaving it to Krishna, like what you did, you were sharing about what you did in Rishikesh. I'll see how it plays out. Let me just take the opportunity. I heard another class where I somewhat disagreed with what they were saying. They were saying that, we say Sarva Dharman Parityajya, we say all these phrases from Bhagavad Gita, but we need to take we need to plan as much as we can for our lives. But then I was just thinking of the point that what if we plan everything like I'm in 1 year, 10 years, this, so on, where do we allow Krishna to reciprocate with his mercy? So I was thinking, where is the line to be drawn between giving that opportunity to Krishna and taking that risk and being responsible and making plans for it. I was thinking, where do I draw that line?
Really good question. And it's a balance. Sometimes Krishna will give us clear direction, but we need to receive it. Like somehow, maybe through Guru, Shastra, or Sadhu, the clear plan will present itself, what your life should be like somehow. And if you're really surrendering to Krishna, you see that, and you're able to use it. It's like Arjuna, he didn't just sit down on the chariot and say, I surrender to Krishna. Surrendering to Krishna meant stand up and fight. So similarly in our lives, surrendering to Krishna might be, okay, I actually do need to do something right now. I need to figure out my life. I need to make a plan. But it's a balance between certainty about what you're doing and uncertainty, leaving it up to Krishna always, and being willing to change. There's the example of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. He had his disciple who was really good at leading some project, and the other devotees were saying he's attached materially to this project. So then he called him in and said, you need to leave this project immediately and go to some other project. And the disciple said, yes, sir, just let me know when to go, where to go. And he said, okay, you can stay. So he wasn't attached to that plan of being there. So that's why he was able to continue doing it. So similarly in our lives, Krishna might reveal a natural and easy path for you. And then it might seem very structured and you can see it all the way down. And that might be just perfect. That might be Krishna's plan for you. But don't be attached to that in case he brings something else that from within and confirmed by the spiritual master sounds like something much better. Maybe you need to give up that path, that safe, easy, clear path for something else. So it's not always so obvious, but we can hear from Chaitya Guru in the heart and confirmed by a spiritual master and the Shastras and the sadhus if we need to change our plans.
Yeah, it's kind of like we're surrendering to Krishna. But surrendering to Krishna means surrendering to Krishna. And Krishna sometimes, he doesn't change his plans, but our plans may be different according to different time because we're still under the aspect of time. So maybe when I was in school, I need to focus on my school and that may be my service. But then once I leave school, my service may change. So yeah, I really like that answer. That I like that you brought up. We should confirm with the spiritual master, the saints, and the scriptures. Those are. It's kind of like when you're going through something and you read some passage in Srila Prabhupada's books, and it just hits you right on the head, and it's kind of like Srila Prabhupada is talking to you. Mm-hmm. I've had that experience many times. It's very fulfilling. Yeah, very nice.
Yeah. Here in this plane, the spiritual master, the sadhus, and the shastra are the representatives of Krishna. So surrendering to them really is surrendering to Krishna.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because even in like Bhagavatam, depending on what lesson is being taught, Prabhupada will have statements that sometimes seem contradictory in one section to another. So we need to balance all these things and have a reasonable, mature approach, especially when we're deciding the course of our lives. But a lot of times, the path of least resistance is good. Like, before I was a devotee, I went through business school. I got a business degree. So I have a business degree. So now if and when I need to make income, it makes sense to just get a job that you need a business degree for, rather than try and reinvent the wheel. It's like, okay, Krishna giving me a business degree, so I can just roll with that.
Yeah.
So sometimes this smooth and easy sailing, at least as far as like material life goes, can be a good idea. That's kind of a separate topic, but I thought of it for some reason.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We're a little over time. I think I'll stop there. Is that good?
Yeah.
Thank you all so much for having me. You really are a very gracious community, and I feel very thankful to be in your midst. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Radha Nathabar ki jai. Gaur Premanandi.
His Grace Ekachakra Prana Prabhu ki jai.
Jai. Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you, everyone online. We feel your presence, and it makes a big difference. Hare Krishna.
Okay, Prashad. Mahaprasade Govinde, Nam Ramri Vaishnave, Punyam Raja, Vishwasaneva Jayate, Sarirara Vidyaja, Jodendriya Tahika, Jive Fele, Vishaya Sagore, Dharmate jivayati.
Dharmate jivayati.
Lobhamashu durmati.
Lobhamashu durmati.
Take jeta kathina samsare.
Take jeta kathina samsare.